What's going on, guys? It's Doink. Welcome back. Today I'm going to be diving into One Piece, the Baroque Works / Alabasta saga, the second arc, which a lot of people call it just Alabasta, some people call it Baroque Works. All of my volumes say Baroque Works on them. So I'm going to be sitting in that chair right over there, and I'm going to read volume 13, and I'm going to record the process of myself doing that, and I'm gonna have like a montage of myself reading through it and a few of the reactions that I had as I was reading it, and then right afterwards I'm gonna talk about it. So without any further ado, let's get right into volume 13 of Baroque Works. Alright, so I've just finished volume 13 of Baroque Works in One Piece, and I gotta say, this volume was insane. As some of you may know, as of the time I'm recording this, I watched the brand new trailer for One Piece, which is not going to be brand new by the time this video comes out, but it was brand new as of yesterday, and it was the first look trailer where we finally got a first look at everything, well, not everything, but we finally got a first look of stuff within the second season, which is really exciting. And there was quite a few things in there that I didn't recognize, like Brogy, for example, and I finally understand and know who Brogy is because I've read this, so that's really, really exciting stuff, and I'm really looking forward to talking about it with you guys. There's some other stuff within the trailer that I didn't really understand and I didn't know either, so knowing that stuff is really, really cool, and I'm gonna actually look back at the trailer once I'm done recording this, and I'm gonna kind of look into it a little bit more to see anything that I may have missed that now I understand. So yeah, you know what? Something doesn't feel right. Give me just 1 second. There we go, that's better. I had to get on my straw hat. I thought something felt a little bit weird. I did the entirety of the East Blue with the straw hat on, so I felt like I needed to do it, and I just felt like something was off. So yeah, now I've got my straw hat on, so let's get into it, shall we? So first off, I'm going to talk about where I left off in Volume 12, because Volume 12 is technically the start of Baroque Works, even though it's also the end of East Blue. So basically, the Straw Hat crew got to the Cactus Island, which I can't remember what the island is called at the moment, but they got to the Cactus Island, and everybody there was weirdly nice, and they all celebrated these pirates for no reason. I didn't really understand why. And then we ended up figuring out that they were just trying to get him drunk and woozy from being so stuffed that they were gonna basically kill them in their sleep. So very, very rude, to be honest. But the nice thing is that Zoro was on top of it, and he didn't get himself drunk enough to the point where he was going to be a problem, and he basically defended everybody as well as himself, all by himself. He took on the entirety of the town basically by himself. So that was pretty incredible and really, really fun to experience, and that was like my first taste of One Piece that I didn't really know and understand, other than the stuff in Town that we never got in the end of season 1 that we're going to get in the beginning of season 2. So I'm really excited to see all that stuff finally play out within season 2, because as you know from the last video, I'm someone who got into One Piece from the live action, and then I made my way into the manga. So I'm a One Piece live action fan first, and I love the live action to death. I think it's absolutely fantastic what they've done with it, and based on the trailer for season 2, I think it's going to be really, really good. So fingers crossed that they end up pulling it off, because so far it looks promising and I'm really excited about it. But then we get into volume 13, and Zoro is still defending everybody from the different numbered characters like I think it's Mr. 5, Mr. 3, something like that. And then there's also Mrs. Wednesday. Mrs. Wednesday is a baddie. I gotta tell you, Mrs. Wednesday is a baddie. And then we also end up meeting Karu, which is Mrs. Wednesday's duck, and it seems like he's gonna be a relatively prominent character based on how much time he's had within volume 13. And then there's also the guy with the crazy hair, and I'll probably remember his name as I go through this. There's so many names. It takes me a while to learn names. I'm terrible with names. I'm completely awful with it. There's nobody worse at names than I am, so you guys will have to bear with me on that one. So yeah. And then after that, we get introduced to Mr. 5 and Mrs. Valentine, and these two end up coming in a little bit after the whole thing happened, and they're basically after everybody. At first they don't really care about Zoro, Nami, Luffy, the Straw Hats. They really don't care. They're just here to kind of infight on their own gang of the Baroque Works. They're out there to take out Miss Wednesday, which is also known as Vivi, who is the princess of Alabasta. So that's also something that's really, really cool. And Alabasta finally got a mention in this, which is really cool, because I was wondering when that was going to come into play. And I actually didn't know what Alabasta even was. I thought it was just the name of an arc, but it turns out Alabasta is a place, which is the place that Vivi / Miss Wednesday is trying to protect. And Nami ends up making a deal with the leader of the town, which I can't remember his name again at the moment, but he has like the crazy hair. He has cannons in his hair, which is insane. And he's a pretty interesting character for sure. And he also uses like a saxophone for doing some damage, which is really quite cool. Nami is basically bribing them for money to save Miss Wednesday, the princess, Vivi, and she kind of drags Zoro into it by blackmailing him about a deal that she made with him back at Logetown, which is really, really funny. And Zoro ends up helping her, so he goes to try to rescue her. And then as Miss Wednesday is running off, Miss Monday comes in, and Miss Monday is this huge, just bulky chick. She's insane. And they end up getting into a fight with Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine, and Miss Valentine has a really cool power where she had a gum fruit, which allows her, I think it's called the kilo fruit, where basically she can change her weight. She can make herself super light, and she can make herself super heavy whenever she wants. So she uses that within her fighting style. She has an umbrella, everything like that, so she can like fly away if she needs to. And she's basically just got some really, really cool abilities that has to do with that. Then Mr. 5 has a pretty unique ability where he picks his nose, and then he can flick a booger, and the booger, I think it like explodes, but it's also like, it's insanely powerful. It's extremely dangerous, and it's just an insane weapon. And then he can also, I think, just make stuff explode in general. But yeah, and I think he can also light himself on fire too. Yeah, he can ignite his entire body. So yeah, he's pretty insane, I gotta say. And then during this fight, Luffy ends up waking up from his stupor and is drunk and everything like that, and he's very, very upset with Zoro. He ends up thinking that Zoro just ended up fighting these people for no reason. Luffy is like ready to kill Zoro out of nowhere. It made no sense to me when I first came across it. I was like, what is going on here? So Zoro and Luffy end up fighting, and they're so into what's going on with their own fight that they start to ignore Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine. And Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine are like, okay, we don't need this, we don't care. And then both of them try to go find Mrs. Wednesday. It turns out, since Zoro and Luffy are so OP and they're both fighting, they basically accidentally involve Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine into the fight, because their fight is so destructive that they end up basically destructing themselves into them. So they basically have no choice but to fight Luffy and Zoro. And then after Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine finally decide to go fight Zoro and Luffy and Zoro are so into fighting each other at that point that they're so annoyed at anyone else trying to get involved. So Zoro and Luffy instantly, and I mean instantly, just completely demolish Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine, and I think it's absolutely comical. It's so good. And right before they board the Going Merry to go onto their adventure to the next place, to the next island, they run into Igaram, which was the guy with the curly hair I was talking about. I just barely saw his name in the book, so now I've kind of got it down a little bit better. It'll still take me a little bit to like fully get it down, but I don't know if it'll necessarily matter, because it seems like later on he gets blown up anyway, so I'm not entirely sure if he survives that or not, but it seems like maybe not, so I'm not entirely sure. But One Piece characters tend to survive ridiculous things because of how overpowered they are, and it's a little bit different in the manga than it is in live action. Like, for example, Mary Dory dies in the live action while he survives in the manga. So I don't know if it'll be that same type of thing where maybe this character survives in the manga, dies in the live action once that eventually comes out, but I'm not entirely sure what's going on there, but I guess we'll figure it out soon. But basically, Igaram decides to disguise himself as Miss Wednesday, which looks ridiculous. He puts on the whole outfit, everything like that, and he just looks ridiculous. And he basically sets himself up as a decoy, and he goes and sails off to go do his thing, and then he explodes. The whole ship explodes that he's on. And then we finally get introduced to a character that I've been interested in for quite some time, because I've heard about her, like, just a ton ever since I got into the live action, and ever since they started promoting season 2. I've been hearing a ton about a character named Miss All Sunday, and here we finally get introduced to her. She's a very ominous character, which I was not expecting, and she's in a position that I didn't expect. For some reason, I thought Miss All Sunday was going to be one of the new members of the Straw Hat crew, and I thought she was going to be a friend, and it seems like she could possibly be a friend still, but she's so, like, ominous, and she's so hard to read that maybe she's not. And then also the position that she's in, she's basically the first mate for Crocodile, which of course is Mr. Zero, who seems to be the main kind of villain of this arc so far, who I've actually not come across yet. I've just heard a little bit about him. I've seen that Joe Manganiello ended up being the casting for him in the live action, which is great casting. I've seen pictures of the character, and it looks like he'll pull it off quite well. And One Piece fans who've been a fan of One Piece for a long time seem like they're really excited about it, so I'm excited to see how it ends up happening. So we get introduced to her, and she basically says that there's a better way to get to Alabasta. She ends up giving a compass thing. I can't remember what it's called at the moment, but she gives a compass thing, and Luffy instantly destroys it, and he basically gets really upset. He doesn't want to take the route that she wants to take. The rest of the crew members are kind of into the idea, because they're like, if we have a better route, one that's safer, then maybe we should take it. But Luffy doesn't trust it, and maybe he's better for it, but he destroys the thing right away, and so they end up going their own route. She basically says that she is the first mate to Crocodile, and she makes it kind of known that she seems like she's probably a bad guy, but at the same time she seems like she's wanting to help. So it's really confusing in my brain. It's kind of just bouncing around all over the place. I don't know what she's about. I don't know if she's good or bad or what, but she's a very cool character, and I'm really liking her so far. But she ends up leaving, and they end up taking their own route, and they end up going to Little Garden. And this is where we meet Brogy and Dory. And Brogy and Dory are two giants that were exiled from their home because they had a disagreement about something, and they were exiled a long time ago. Like, they've been there for years trying to fight each other. Basically, in their culture, whoever wins the fight, their god ends up deciding once whoever's won the fight gets to go back home, I believe, and the other person dies. So they've been fighting each other for a long time. They've been on the island for so long that they're also friends. Like, they have this weird relationship where they're friends. They really love to banter and hang out with each other, yet they're still trying to kill each other because they have this warrior mindset where one of them has to win. But they've had a few tens of thousands of draws, which I think is really, really funny. So they've been at it forever, and it doesn't seem like it's going to stop anytime soon. There's dinosaurs on this island. Everything's massive. Everything's massively scaled. All the animals are huge, and basically everything there is just oversized. And when they ended up going there, they kind of questioned what was going on, and they thought they were probably going to die because Brogy and Dory ended up feeding them, but they saw a bunch of bones, a bunch of human bones lying around, so they thought that maybe they were just trying to fatten them up so they can eat human. But that turns out that wasn't the case. It turns out that their little compass thing that needs to take time to set apparently takes a long time to set, and any human that's ever come across the island and has been stuck there, they either die by the dinosaurs or some other kind of natural cause, or the fact that they just get too old or something like that. They die to something and before they can get off the island, and that ends up being a problem for the Straw Hat crew and Miss Wednesday, because they need to get to Alabasta as soon as possible. So they can't be dealing with that right now. They need to go. So basically, after they witness the fight between Brogy and Dory, which is a really fun scene, I really enjoyed the sequence quite a lot. We kind of go to a different perspective of different characters. We end up going to the perspective of Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week, and these characters I know nothing about at the moment. All I know is that they're, of course, a part of Baroque Works because of their names. And basically, something with the Baroque Works is that the lower the number is, the closer to 0, the closer you are to Mr. 0 / Crocodile / the more powerful you are. So Mr. 3, I'm imagining, is probably pretty powerful. He has a 3 in his hair, which I think is pretty ridiculous. But he basically hears news about how Mr. 5 ended up losing and probably, I think, dying. I think he was killed. And then also Mrs. Valentine as well, so how they failed. And he's like, those guys sucked anyway. It is what it is. And then we get like a pretty wholesome thing with Usopp and his kind of character arc that he wants to go on, where he wants to become a brave warrior of the sea, and he's really inspired by Brogy and Dory's kind of warrior mentality and the fact that they're brave warriors of the sea. And then to kind of, I guess, celebrate, just have a little bit of fun, the giants end up drinking some ale, but the ale ends up being explosive, which my guess is that Miss All Sunday had something to do with that. She probably rigged it. And Dory is pretty upset about it. There's a panel where he's looking pretty dark, pretty scary, I'm just gonna be real. And then Luffy kind of challenges him to a fight, from what I take, and then that's where volume 13 ends. So yeah, everything is getting crazy, and so far the second arc is already more insane than East Blue. Like, East Blue is insane, but this is already like even more insane just with this first volume and the stuff that was also in volume 12, the stuff that we never actually got to see at the end of season 1 because it ended a little sooner than it does in the manga, because the East Blue in season 1 of the live action actually ended up getting cut off a little bit earlier from where it gets cut off in the manga. So we're going to be picking up at Logetown, things like that, and them setting off to the Grand Line in episode 1, I imagine, of season 2. So I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, so that was it with volume 13. I really loved that volume. I hope you guys enjoyed the ride going through it with me. And without any further ado, let's get right into volume 14. Alright, so I just finished volume 14 of One Piece. This volume was a lot of fun, probably even more fun than last volume, to be honest. I am really looking forward to going through this with you guys and kind of giving my thoughts on it. So where we left off in volume 13, Dory and Brogy were basically chilling out with some of the Straw Hats and whatnot, and a bomb ended up going off inside one of the drinks. I think Dory drank it, so the bomb ended up going off basically inside of his belly, which was very much not good for him. And of course, since he's a giant, he didn't end up dying from that. He's just very injured. And he ended up thinking that it was the Straw Hats that did that to him, and the Straw Hats were very confused, wondering what was going on. And then we ended up figuring out that it was Mr. 5 that ended up doing that, and he ended up rigging up the thing to basically cheat a fight, so that when Dory and Brogy end up fighting each other, Brogy can have an easy win. And that's pretty much exactly what happens. So they end up doing their fight, and of course, Brogy comes out with the pretty easy W after all of those fights that he ended up going throughout all those years. They had thousands of fights, and now Dory seems to be probably dead. I don't know if he is dead, but it seems like he probably is. It's a possibility, I feel like. If he's not, then he's very much in critical condition. But basically that happens, and then another villain ends up showing up, which is Mr. 3. And Mr. 3 has these wax abilities where he can basically turn stuff into wax. He can make wax like statues and things that can basically help turn things into wax. Like he can use wax abilities to like lock up hands, almost like handcuffs and things like that. Like he's got plenty of different things that he can do with the wax. Like he can clone himself, things like that. So he's got quite the unique ability. And then there's another person on the team. So Miss Goldenweek shows up along with Mr. 3, and she has the ability to paint stuff. And it's not just paint. The paint has these kind of abilities to manipulate and I guess mesmerize. Well, not mesmerize. It basically has the ability to manipulate decisions from people. So basically, for example, she uses this black paint, which basically makes Luffy betray his friends, which of course Luffy wouldn't ever want to do. That's the complete opposite of Luffy. So that just goes to show how powerful that paint can be. And then there's also some other different colors that she uses that can do other different things as well, and she ends up doing that. And then of course we've already got Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine, and both of them have some pretty insane broken abilities, to be honest. So the Straw Hats definitely have quite the opponents to go up against in this volume, and Luffy kind of mainly focuses on Mr. 3 because obviously Mr. 3 is the most powerful of the bunch, and he's the one causing the most problems, and of course he ended up freezing Nami, Zoro, and Vivi. So those three are in trouble. And by the way, this whole volume, Sanji is kind of just out of the loop. He doesn't know what's going on. He was still on the hunt that Zoro was on, and Zoro ended up getting captured along with Nami, of course, and then they started to get turned into wax figures along with Vivi. And Sanji was still out there looking for food, basically. And once he realizes that something weird's going on, because he doesn't hear from anybody for a long period of time, he starts to go out to look for him, and he ends up coming across a snail phone, and he ends up making a call, and that call ends up going to... I don't know if he makes the call or if somebody calls him. I think it could be somebody calls him with that snail phone. And it ends up being Mr. Zero, also known as Crocodile. And we haven't really gotten much from him yet. Brogy is also getting turned into wax. He's one of the ones that I forgot to mention just a minute ago. But yeah, he's also being turned into wax. He is very, very upset about the fact that he ended up getting an easy win that wasn't honorable against Dory. Basically, Mr. 3 has his hands basically sealed down to the ground with like a wax sword or like wax daggers, and same with his feet, and he basically he can't move, otherwise his hands and his feet are cooked. So yeah, and Zoro ends up deciding that it would be a good idea to start cutting his own legs off so he could go fight, because Zoro just doesn't care. He ain't going down without a fight, which is something that I really love about Zoro. And also another funny thing about Zoro in this chapter is that since he knows he's probably very likely to become a statue, he's like, I'm gonna strike a sick pose so I look cool. And then Nami is losing her mind, just getting so pissed with him, just so fed up. And I just think that's absolutely hilarious that she's just like, what are we doing? Like, are you like giving up? What's going on here? And he's like, no, I just want to look cool if I'm going to become a statue. And there's this big like pumpkin thing, which I'll put up on screen right now. And it's like this big statue that's made of wax, and that's the thing that's kind of like turning them into wax. So Luffy has to destroy that. But since there's Miss Goldenweek basically using all of her paint abilities, it's giving Luffy quite the hard time when it comes to doing that, because he's over there having a picnic with her, having tea, doing all this other crap that is basically just stopping him from doing what he needs to do to help his friends, because her abilities are insane. But one of the things I'm really loving about One Piece so far up to this point is all of the unique abilities and powers that these characters have. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life, with all of the superhero movies that I've seen, different comic books, other stories just in general, like other books, things like that. I've never seen abilities as unique as they are in One Piece. It's so creative, and I just think it's so much fun, and I absolutely adore it in every single way. Luffy ends up getting the rest of the Straw Hat crew out of the wax, and Nami is looking just mighty fine. I think that's probably the best way I could put it. But I mean, it would be kind of difficult for any man to not have a slight crush on Nami, whether it's the live action Nami or the manga Nami, or I guess also the anime Nami. Personally, I kind of had a bit of a crush on the live action Nami first, but I gotta say, manga Nami, let's go. But yeah, so they end up getting free, and Luffy basically goes to do one last showdown with Mr. 3. Mr. 3 sets up like this mansion thing. He has like a ton of wax figures of himself, like clones, and he's like, you're too brain dead, Luffy, to be able to figure out which one of these is actually me. And then like right as he's like in the middle of talking smack, Luffy just kicks him right in the face and he's like, how did you know where I was? And he's like, instinct. So it worked out really, really well. And he ended up defeating him. But then we end up cutting over to, of course, Sanji, who is trying to figure out what's going on, makes his way back, tries to make his way to his friends. And then he ends up either taking a call or making a call to Mr. Zero. And then this gets left on a massive cliffhanger. I'm really stoked to be getting into volume 15. That's the one I'm going to be getting into right after. And that'll be, of course, within this video. So for me, it'll probably be like a few hours before I get into it, because I think I'm going to do that one today. But for you guys, it'll be right now. Alright, so I just finished volume 15, and this one I really enjoyed as well. This one was a lot of fun, and I got to see a lot of really new and interesting things, which, I mean, is with every volume. But for the last few volumes, we've been on Little Garden Island, so it's been like not a lot of the same, because there's a lot of stuff that's in there that's been unique. But since I've been on Little Garden for a little while now, this right here is quite a bit of a change, because of course we're on a completely different island now in this one. So starting off here in volume 15, Brogy and Dory basically help the Straw Hat crew, and they end up leaving the island after Sanji returns and basically tells the rest of the Straw Hat crew that he ended up talking to Mr. Zero, and he was able to give some information that he was able to get from that phone call. And it seems like Mr. Zero is probably going to try to make his way to Little Garden, or I believe it might have been Alabasta. I think it was Alabasta, to basically see what was going on. And I think he's going to be bringing a bunch of like different warriors within his I guess clan is probably the best way I could put it, crew type of thing, organization. And basically the Straw Hat crew is set to leave, and Brogy and Dory go to see them off. And when they do that, there's also a big goldfish that is a problem, and Dory and Brogy know that, so they go to help and take out the goldfish, and it ends up sending the Going Merry flying through the air, which of course Luffy has a wonderful time enjoying. And also Nami is looking like a baddie at this point. Like like there's no better way to put it. I don't know what it is about Luffy right now, but Luffy is looking shredded. Luffy for like pretty much the entirety of the manga at this point has just looked super skinny and scrawny, but in this last like 2 volumes, he's just looked completely shredded. So that's kind of interesting. He's just gotten beefy out of nowhere. But I'm totally here for it. And I mean, he's ripped on the shirt that I'm wearing, and he's got a bunch of stuff going on that I have no idea. Like, on the shirt that I'm wearing, it's a brand new shirt I got, and Luffy's got, like, all this new clothing on. He's got, like, this mark on his chest. He's, like, shredded. He looks entirely different, and I honestly don't know what that's about. I'll figure that out at some point, but this shirt was just sick, and I couldn't pass it up. So, yeah, I'm very happy to have it, but like I said, at some point I'll know what's up. So yeah, now that they're off, Brogy and Dory basically say, I hope we'll get to see you guys again, because you guys are awesome. And yes, they are. We love the Straw Hat crew. And after being off for a little while, Nami is sick, which of course is not good. She ends up catching a bad fever. And there's one thing that I really enjoyed too, and I'll show the panel on screen now. Basically, it reminds me of Guts in Berserk when he does his sword training, when he swings around his sword to kind of train his just sword fighting skills in general. And we have a similar thing here with Zoro, except he has this giant thing of weights, and it's just ridiculous, and it's so eccentric, and I love it. So when I saw that, not only it reminding me of Guts made me really happy, but I just love the fact that it's so over the top, because I mean that's just something that One Piece has always been here for is just its incredible over the topness, I guess. But yeah, Nami catches a big sickness, really not good, some kind of like insane fever, and all the Straw Hat crew are super worried about her, so they need to get her to an island ASAP. So they end up taking her to this snow island that's nearby, and I can't remember exactly what the snow island is called at the moment, but they take her there, and on the way there they run into a captain named Wapol of the Tin Tyrant Pirates. And this guy ended up eating the Munch fruit, so he basically just eats and consumes everything. And this dude is insanely huge. He's like a big ball, and he looks pretty wild, to be honest. Like, he just looks insane. But he intercepts the Straw Hat crew, and they have a minor little scuffle. Then Luffy basically just demolishes him. It seems like he lobs off Wapol's head and sends him flying, basically. And then they end up sailing away. And they basically like, we're gonna get revenge on you, remember us, we'll get revenge, we don't like you. And so they basically continue to make their way to the snow island. They eventually make it, and the people that are there, like the guards and stuff, are not super happy to see them right off the bat, so they start shooting at them and whatnot because they're not a big fan of pirates. And once the Straw Hat crew shows that they mean no harm, they end up bringing them onto the island, and they say that they need a doctor for Nami, and they realize that these people don't really have any doctors. There's only one, and it's this witch who lives up in the castle that the king used to live into, and I'll get more into the king in just a minute. And basically, they let Nami rest in this shack for a little bit, get warm, but that's of course not going to help her entirely. She needs a proper doctor. And this whole time they're talking about a doctor, I'm thinking of Chopper this whole time, because Chopper has gotten introduced in like the trailers for One Piece Season 2, so I've already kind of been aware of Chopper at this point, and people absolutely love Chopper. So I've been getting really excited for Chopper to show up. And then we get told about this witch, and I was like, okay, I guess Chopper won't be showing up quite yet. But then I realized that Chopper was one of the animals, like the deer or whatever, that would help this witch with her like sleigh riding and stuff like that. And then I'm pretty sure Chopper's also kind of her assistant, basically. That's kind of the vibes that I've been getting. So Chopper finally gets introduced. He's not like in like the humanoid form that he's in when we see him in the live action trailer for season 2. And the look that I'm used to seeing him even like in the animated form when I've seen him in pictures and a few clips here and there. But when it comes to his form that he's in now, he's like in a deer form. But I've heard that he takes like I think he takes like a devil fruit or something like that, from what I've heard. And that's what turns him into like that humanoid form where he can talk and everything like that. So I think that'll probably happen maybe next volume, I'm not entirely sure, but it hasn't happened up to this point. So Luffy is getting really impatient. He basically asks Nami, he's like, okay, I want to take you up to the castle up the mountain, and she's like totally all in. And the rest of the Straw Hat crew's like, I don't know about this, I don't know if this is a good idea, but since Nami and Luffy are gonna probably do it anyway, they go, okay, whatever. And then Sanji goes to join them to help him out on the way, because it would be good to have him there, because Luffy won't be able to do any fighting. He won't be able to do much of anything like that because he'll be carrying Nami. And if he does that, then that'll shake Nami up. That'll make her in worse condition than she's already in. So they need to be able to have somebody that can fight things off if that becomes a problem. So Sanji goes with him, of course. The rest of the crew stays behind, and they later realize that the witch is not up there. The witch is in a neighboring town, which of course is problematic, especially because at this point Luffy and Sanji and Nami are going up against these giant bear bunny creatures that are just completely demonic. Like, they're insane and they just want to kill them. So this is not good for them. So they go to the neighboring island, the people that are, like the rest of the Straw Hat crew that stayed behind, as well as this captain dude, which is named Captain Dalton. And there's a cool little secret about him that I'll mention here in a minute. But he basically mentions that there was once a king that ruled over the Snow Island that was just trash, basically. Like, he was a very evil guy. He was not a good king. People were very unhappy with him being the ruler of this snow island. So eventually, when he ended up leaving because pirates invaded and things like that, which is also why they don't like pirates, he took off either with the pirates or he took off separately and became his own crew. But it basically was kind of a blessing in disguise for these people, because these people were able to kind of, I guess, rule over themselves, and they didn't have to worry about a king that sucks and that treated them unfairly and just badly in general. So they really don't want this king to return. And the king is actually Wapol, the guy that they encountered earlier that had the ability of the Munch Munch fruit. So that guy wasn't very nice, and his goal is to try to find and return to his Snow Island home. And of course, that's what the people that live there now don't want to happen, including Captain Dalton. So they're definitely worried about that happening. And sadly, by the end of this volume, it does happen. They do get invaded by Wapol, and it kind of leaves off there. We don't really get too much from that other than the fact that Wapol and his men end up killing all of the guards that are, except for one of them that ends up making a run for it and basically warning Dalton. Dalton shows up with having devil fruit powers that turns him into like an animal creature, basically a furry, but a dangerous and cool looking furry at that, because I mean, I'm not a big fan of furries at all. I think they're gay and retarded, but I mean, that's just my opinion. People can have whatever opinion that they want, but furries are definitely not for me. But I mean, if you like being a furry, then you do you. If you like furries, you do you. It is what it is, but not my thing. I'll just put it out there right now. But this guy, Captain Dalton, his furry form is super, super cool, and he gets shot with a bunch of arrows, and I think he dies. So, yeah. Uh-oh. Not so good. But backtracking a little bit, Dalton, before he gets shot and before he ends up running into the Wapol, basically they get to the neighboring town, they find the witch there, and she's healing this kid, and of course Chopper's there as well, which is so nice. I'm so excited to be finally introduced to Chopper for the first time, and I can only imagine that he'll probably end up getting that devil fruit or whatever it is that changes him at some point by the end of this little mini arc, and then they'll probably have Chopper go with them on the Going Merry, because Chopper, I'm pretty sure, becomes a Straw Hat member, which makes me super, super happy. He ends up becoming their ship doctor. That's kind of the idea that I've had for a little while now, from what I understand, from what people have said and what I've heard. So that's something I'm really, really excited to see come to fruition when that ends up happening. Basically, she ends up leaving that town. By the time they get there, she's not there, but they say that she's over at this other town, and so when they go to head there, I believe that's when they realize that Wapol has made it to the shore, because the guy says, hey, the rest of the guards are dead, I'm the only one that made it, Wapol's here, he's back. So Dalton goes to fight them, and of course gets shot, and I'm pretty sure he's dead. And that's kind of where we're left off at the moment. Luffy and Sanji are still in quite a bit of trouble. So yeah, Nami is not doing so good right now, and it seems like the Straw Hat crew kind of as a whole isn't doing so good right now, but they've been at lower points, I feel like. When it comes to the Grand Line, the bad guys are insane. Like, their power levels are out of this world, and pretty much every single East Blue villain would get a run for their money fighting it. Pretty much any of the villains that we've had up to this point in Baroque Works / Alabasta. So I haven't gotten quite to Alabasta yet, from what I understand, when it comes to like the way the arcs work. I'm still in Baroque Works, and this, like I said, this video is going to be Baroque Works only, but next video after this one will be diving into Alabasta. But basically, just to sum up what I think of this volume, I absolutely loved it, and I had so much fun with it. I think I like the previous volume even more, but this one I still really, really enjoyed and had a great time with. So yeah, it's probably going to be a different day for me when I hop into the next couple volumes, because I think I have 2 more left in Baroque Works, including a couple chapters within volume 18, and then I'll be getting into Alabasta in the next video after this one. It'll be in a few seconds for you guys, but probably a different day for me. You guys will be able to tell because I'll be wearing different clothes, things like that. I'll look probably a bit different. But anyway, guys, time to get straight into volume 16 of One Piece right now. Alright, so I just finished volume 16. This volume was absolutely fantastic. I was finally able to get some more information on Chopper, a character that I've been really looking forward to getting more information on and getting to know more about. So Chopper, I've been wanting to get information about for quite a long time now. I've known about him pretty much ever since I got into One Piece, but my first like real introduction to him, as I've probably said in this video already, is when I was introduced to him in the season 2 trailers. So I haven't really had much of anything to go off of other than that I know based on things that people have said on the internet, like some information that he's a doctor and whatnot. So that's pretty much all I've known about him. But now, all thanks to volume 16, I've gotten his entire backstory and everything like that. So I've pretty much gotten all I could ever want in a Chopper introduction, and I gotta say, I am very, very happy with this volume. So I'm just gonna hurry and get into it, and I'm gonna talk about it real quick. So we start off the volume by Luffy still carrying Nami up the mountain with Sanji, and King Wallop, or Walpup, whatever his name is, he's basically still on their tail with his pirates and stuff, and he wants to take down Luffy. He wants revenge basically on Luffy for basically Luffy showing him who was boss, and he wasn't a big fan of that, so naturally he wanted to take down Luffy and the other two Straw Hats. But he's making his way up to his own castle, and of course Luffy, Nami, and Sanji were making their way up there as well. And the big bear creatures, the big bear bunny things, can't remember exactly what they're called at the moment, but they decided to stop attacking Luffy and the Straw Hats and decided to attack Walpup, whatever his name is, because I can almost guarantee you that these creatures don't like him very much. They probably have a history with him, so they decided to just let Luffy and the gang go. So I mean, that's kind of what I understood from it. I could be wrong on that, but that's kind of what I got from it. That's the vibe that I got. That's everything that I saw. So they end up making their way to the top, and then I'm going to flash forward a little bit later into the volume when it ends up showing us what happens once they get up to the top. Because there's like a small little flashback section where it shows them getting up to the top, because it kind of like skips that certain part and then goes to a different part. And it's kind of a little strange how they did it, but I'm still really, really okay with it. I love the way they did it. But basically, Luffy and Sanji are basically completely, like, they're out of it. They're so tired. They're almost basically dead when they get up there. And same case with Nami, because of course of how sick she is. So Chopper basically tends to Sanji and Luffy, from what I understand, and then the old lady, which I can't remember her name at the moment, but I'll throw it in the video if I need to, because I'm sure I've said it before in this video, but it's been like a week since I recorded the last session, when I was wearing actually probably not a week, it's been a couple days since I recorded it, when I was wearing the Luffy shirt. But basically she tends to Nami, and Nami's been laying in bed for a little while now, and now Nami feels like she feels better. And then she ended up telling Nami, the doctor chick, she told Nami that the reason why she was hurt is because she was probably walking through a forest with her belly exposed, which, yes, she was, for sure, definitely. I remember that 100%. And she ended up getting some bites from like these tick-type bugs that really did a number on her, and apparently the sickness that they can give can kill her in like a week's time, like 5 days, something like that, so really not good. So Nami only had like another couple days to live, basically, but luckily the doctor chick had some stuff left over from a long time ago, because she decided it would be safer to keep that stuff than not, and she was able to help Nami. So at this point, Chopper kind of introduces himself to Nami, and Nami invites him to be a part of the crew because she is in a hurry to leave, and the doctor chick basically said, you can't leave, you have to stay for 5 days so you can heal. And Nami doesn't really want to do that because of course she's in a hurry, so she wants to invite Chopper along on the ship with them so she can be taken care of by Chopper. And Chopper denies this. He's not a fan of the idea. And then the doctor chick comes in and she's like, oi, were you trying to recruit him without my knowledge, without my permission? And she was like, I mean, do whatever you want, whatever. I could care less if he comes with you or not, but good luck convincing him, because he's had quite the history. He's got quite the past with humans and everything like that, and he's going to be hard to crack. So then, and one of the cool new things that I've kind of seen with Chopper is that he's able to transform himself from the little cute guy into a big hulking creature that's just insane, and also kind of be able to like crawl on 4 legs like a regular deer. And I think he can transform between a few different forms. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting, but it's really, really quite cool. And then we get introduced to Chopper's backstory, and in this we meet a character named Dr. Huralik, something like that. And he also goes by Quack Doctor. And he's quite an interesting fella. He has like this life's work thing that he's been doing for like 30 years, where he wants to grow cherry blossom trees in this snowy, I guess, land, this snowy island. because of course cherry blossom trees are not really able to grow in that area, so he wants to be able to make a way for it to happen, because I'm pretty sure back when he was younger, he was in a state of like near death, and for some reason cherry blossoms or something that had to do with cherry blossoms ended up saving his life. So he's like very, very invested in doing this, and it's basically what he wants to do before he dies for sure. And he ends up meeting Chopper, and at this point Chopper has no friends. Chopper's already had it really rough because the deer that have traveled with him forced him to stay at the back of the pack, because I guess like Chopper had a blue nose, which was different from the rest, so he was like kind of an outcast. He was like the black sheep of all the deer. And then since he was kicked out later on after he ate the human fruit, because he became even more of a different kind of being and even more of an outcast at that point, he tried to go live with the humans, but the humans also treated him like complete garbage, called him a monster and all this stuff. So basically he gets triggered by the word monster pretty badly, because he was called monster by all the worst type of people and creatures and things like that basically just wanted him gone and wanted him outcast. So Chopper's already had it pretty rough at this point, and I'll just call him Quack Doctor. I don't want to keep trying to remember the name, but Quack Doctor basically takes him in almost like a son and treats him really, really well. And they have I think like about a year together. I think it's a year where Quack Doctor heals him and things like that. And then once he's healed, Quack Doctor ends up kicking him out. And at first I'm like, I wasn't really sure what was going on. I was a little bit sad. I was like, why is he kicking Chopper out? Like, that's just kind of out of nowhere, out of pocket, and Chopper's already been through enough. Why does he need to kick him out? And then we later figure out that the Quack Doctor is dying. He only has, at this point, a few more days to live, and he doesn't want Chopper to have to witness that. He doesn't want Chopper to have to experience that, because he really cares about Chopper. But then while Chopper's out, he, of course, comes across more deer, which completely abuse him and make him bleed, like just bruise him up. It's really bad. And then at some point he comes across a mushroom, which Chopper at this point thinks is going to be a mushroom that's going to help him, that's going to help the Quack Doctor, and it ends up turning out that mushroom was poisonous, and Chopper didn't know, because Chopper just, like, he was trying his best, but he just didn't know. He tried to look at a book that he had to try to see if it was going to be good or not, and he didn't understand what the skull and crossbones meant, which of course means it was poisonous within that book. So he brought back the mushroom. The Quack Doctor was very, very, like, he felt really, I guess, excited. He was very happy, and he felt, I guess, really warm and fuzzy at the fact that Chopper just is such a sweet little thing. And it was basically just a really, really wholesome moment for the both of them. And he ended up, I believe, taking the mushroom into like a soup or something like that. And basically, I think the doctor knew that it was poisonous. I'm not entirely sure. He might have not known until later, but at some point he does end up figuring it out, and he does know that it's poisonous, at least before he dies. But later on, after Chopper stayed with him a little bit longer, at this point, the Quack Doctor thinks he's probably going to have some longer time to live, so he lets Chopper stay with him and things like that, and they end up having really wholesome moments. Their relationship is doing really, really good at this point. And then they end up figuring out the experiment, basically I guess the potion or whatever it is that they were creating. A concoction is probably the best way I can put it. But Chopper and the Quack Doctor figure out a concoction to make what the Quack Doctor's been working on his entire life for like the 30 years or whatever. So his life's work is finally complete. He goes to show the old doctor lady, and she is not very impressed. She's just like, this is a waste of time, but whatever, good for you. And at this point, the Quack Doctor knows that he doesn't have much time left because he knows the mushroom is poisonous, I believe. And he asks the old lady to train Chopper as a doctor, because Chopper had previously asked the Quack Doctor to train him as a doctor, and he said he would. But obviously he can't because he's going to die soon. So he begs the old lady, to train Chopper, which she keeps denying. But at this point, we clearly know that she does do it because Chopper knows how to be a doctor at this point, and she even says as much within like the context of the current timeline, not the past flashback. So we already know that she does train him, even though she's in denial at this point. And he asks her to put all this fairy dust around so that the cherry blossom trees can grow and stuff like that. And she's also in denial about that, but I'm sure she probably does it, but I'm not entirely sure at this point yet. But then the Quack Doctor basically gets, I believe, tricked into going up to the castle with the King Wallop or whatever his name is to heal 20 doctors. But it turns out the doctors were totally fine. They didn't need any healing. They didn't need any cure. And he was just baited up there. But he ended up bringing something that was like this explosive, or he made it up there, something like that. I think he brought it though. And he drinks it and blows himself up. And he basically says, "I love you, Chopper. Thank you, Chopper. And it wasn't you that took me out with the mushroom. It was something else." And I guess he wanted Chopper to know that or something like that. So basically Chopper then comes up there and he ends up seeing that his best friend and basically family at that point, the Quack Doctor, is dead. Just his hat is left over. And by this sight, he's obviously very upset. He turns into the big beast mode version of Chopper, and he's basically ready to square up to everybody in there. And he's definitely outnumbered, so he probably wouldn't be capable of pulling it off. But then we have Dalton, who turns into his like bestial form from the devil fruit that he ate, and he pins Chopper down, and he basically tells him that he's gonna have to leave or he will die. And Dalton's basically just a good dude. He's basically making a way for Chopper to get out and escape, and Chopper does exactly that. He ends up leaving. And then Dalton kind of gets in a bit of trouble with the king, and the king basically chews him out and says that he shouldn't disobey, things like that. And then Dalton chews him out, saying that the path that we're on right now is going to destroy the entire kingdom. We can't be treating our people like animals. So Dalton at this point has already basically changed his mind about the king. Dalton, at this point, Giga Chad. We love Dalton. And then, of course, later on in the timeline, but earlier on in the story, we found out that Dalton's a good guy. He is not in great condition right now. He might be dead, but with One Piece, it's hard to know if anyone actually dies or not. They can be in critical condition and still survive, so he may be alive. I really don't know. And I'm not entirely sure, but it seems like at the end, the very last panel of the volume, I'll put it up on screen now, it seems like it's either Luffy. It kind of looks like Luffy from the back, but I guess it might be Dalton. I'm not entirely sure, but we get one last shot of I'm pretty sure King Wallop, or like I said, whatever his name is, getting punched. And I'm pretty sure that's who it is that's getting punched. And that's basically the end of this volume. So we get a lot of juice within this beautiful volume right here. I really enjoyed myself quite a lot. And like I said, the backstory that we got with Chopper makes me very, very excited to get into the other volume, because I have one more volume to do before I get into Alabasta. Let's get right into volume 17 of One Piece. Alright, so I just finished Baroque Works with volume 17, and I gotta tell you, I absolutely loved this volume. This is probably one of my favorite volumes up to this point. This one was absolutely fantastic. This one had a lot of juice in it, and I am very much ready to talk about it with you guys. So basically, we start off with Luffy in a fight with Mr. Wapol. It was Mr. Wapol, not Wallop, but he does get walloped. Luffy basically gives him a spiel on, you ain't gonna disrespect this flag of the skull and crossbones. You don't deserve to fly this flag because you suck. And at the same time, Chopper is watching this, and Chopper has a lot of respect for that particular flag because that was the Quack Doctor's flag that he was flying. And he really, really loves and cares about the Quack Doctor and continuing his legacy, things like that. So that was something that kind of struck Chopper's heart pretty easily from Luffy. And Luffy's always been pretty good at that. He's always been pretty good at making people that don't like him. And I think that's kind of interesting that he's able to have that kind of skill with that, considering how extra Luffy is. Because, I mean, even for me, I didn't like Luffy off the start when I was watching the live action. And then by the end of the show, Luffy was one of the greatest characters. So, like, I absolutely adore Luffy, and I have up to this point. So, like, yeah. So, basically, he's in a fight with Captain Wapol. And Captain Wapol basically turns into this factory thing where he eats his own men and kind of combines them into him or whatever and makes him like almost like this super monster thing, this super beast. And he ends up being pretty powerful, but not powerful enough because Luffy's a G. And him and Chopper kind of team up. And at some point, I think Wapol gets separated from the fight. He ends up like running off or something like that while Luffy's distracted by Chopper's ability to be able to switch to so many different forms. Because like it's shown that Chopper can switch into 3 different forms. He's got his deer form, his like partially man deer form, I guess, and then he's got his full like man form, which is like still very much deer form as well, but it's more man-like. But his man deer form, like the middle one, that's the one that he has most of the time, and that's the one that he was revealed with in the trailer for One Piece Season 2, and that's kind of his iconic look, I guess, is probably the best way I can put it. But he also has some tricks up his sleeve where he eats some stuff and he's able to make himself transform even more, and he transforms himself into a beast, gives himself some ripped muscles, and just goes absolutely ham on everybody. Luffy is distracted by that, so Wapol gets away, away, and he goes to the castle, which is of course where Nami is, and Nami is not in great condition, so that's not very good. So he ends up chasing Nami. Nami of course gets away because she's Nami. She's really good at doing that kind of stuff, and she steals the key that he has on him, which is like the key to the armory, which ends up helping them out later. And she's also able to use that to bribe the old lady. And again, I've seen her name at that like quite a few times, but some of the names are so confusing that I just don't remember them. So I'm sure I'll figure that out at some point, but I'll put her name up on screen right now. So yeah, that's her name, and I probably already put it up in other parts of the video too. But yeah, that's her name, and she's a very interesting character. It seems like she's a bit of a softie, and even Luffy comes to this conclusion. It seems like she's a bit of a softie, but she's very good at hiding it, and she's very, very rough around the edges, but on the inside, she's got a soft spot. And that's something that I'll talk about a little bit later in this chat that we're going to have about this particular volume. And after Luffy ends up realizing that he's after Nami, which also, he ends up eating himself to make himself thinner again, which I think is very, very strange, but also very neat, because I mean, One Piece is just great at doing things like that, where they're just weird but neat. And then also, Dalton is not dead. The last section of this video where I chatted with you guys about the last volume, I thought Dalton was possibly dead, but he is not dead. He's just in critical condition. And Usopp basically volunteers to bring him up the mountain, and he's about to do it, but then Zoro comes in and he's like, nah, I'll just throw him over my shoulder, let's go. And because, I mean, Zoro is just ridiculously strong for no reason, like he's just insane, and he's able to carry stuff with insane weight around his shoulder. It's insane. And you kind of get a sneak of that in the live action when he carries the safe on his back, which is also kind of a counterpart to when he carries Luffy in the cage in the manga. So I really love stuff like that. Also, one thing I want to mention real quick before I end up moving on from this part, but Luffy, when he's when he's on the flag and he's basically doing that speech about the flag and Chopper's looking up at him, kind of I guess pretty inspired about what Luffy's doing. They try to shoot a cannonball directly at Luffy, and he just tanks it like a beast, and it's a really, really cool shot, and I'll put it up on screen now, but it's beautiful. He looks like a beast, and I absolutely love it. I love it when Luffy just gets these moments where he just looks sick. And then after Luffy chases Captain Wapol into the castle, Chopper is outside, and he's just kind of in just a silent state of mind. He's just kind of sitting there, just kind of in deep thought, and he's very kind of emotional in this moment, and he's very, very happy because Luffy, as he was coming down to fight Wapol, Luffy referred to Chopper as his friend, and Chopper's never really had that before, so this makes Chopper very emotional, and I think it's a very lovely moment. And even the witch old lady doctor, she gets very excited for him. You can see it in her face. She's smiling, and she's pretty pleased about that, because I mean, like I said, she's got a bit of a soft spot, even though she's very rough around the edges, which I'll also get into a little bit later, like I said. Once Dalton ends up getting up to the castle, the witch lady chick doctor ends up taking care of him and kind of gives him the medical attention that he needs. While that's happening, Luffy is still in the fight with Wapol, and like I said, he's just completely walloping him, and the way he demolishes him just makes me so happy. Basically, he does a gum cannon, I believe, or gum rocket, something like that. But he puts his hands back and he goes doof and just launches him out of existence. It's insane. Like, it's a really, really cool panel, and Luffy just absolutely destroys him, and I love it. But then, after he's defeated, of course, everyone's really, really happy about it. And then Chopper, at this point, he's like mixed on whether he wants to leave or not. Like, he wants to, but at the same time, he doesn't want to, because he wants to stay to what he considers home and everything like that. And he's kind of out in the woods, kind of out of sight from a lot of people, and Luffy's looking for him. And Luffy's like, come with us, come with us. And Chopper's like, I don't know if I can, I don't know if I should. But then Luffy's like, I will drag you with us, whether you like it or not. You're my friend. So, then a little bit later on, Chopper ends up kind of coming around, and he kind of decides, yeah, you know what, I do want to go. So he decides he wants to go. He goes to say his goodbyes to the old witch lady doctor, and she seems at first like she is not happy about it. She gets very, very angry, and she starts chasing him down, and she's like, you're going nowhere. And then Chopper ends up leaving on the sleigh, taking the lady's sleigh, and the Straw Hats get on it, and they all all basically just fly off and they're gone. And then it's at this moment when we realize that, you know what, the witch lady doctor is very, very happy that he's leaving, and she's actually kind of teary-eyed and really emotional about it. She's excited that he's finally leaving and that he finally has friends, so there was a connection there after all, we end up finding out, and she really, really does care about him, even though sometimes she's rough around the edges and she seems like she doesn't really care for him, but that's just not the truth. And she basically was kind of hoping that Chopper was going to make this decision, I think earlier on, and off the page, I'm pretty sure. I didn't see it happen on the page, but maybe I missed it, but I'm pretty sure I didn't see it happen, where the witch doctor lady put Chopper's like medical supplies and stuff and packed him a bag and put it on the sleigh ready to go. And since he was in such a rush to get out of there, he just never had the time to grab it, and when he ended up leaving, he realized he didn't have his stuff and he was like, oh no, this is not good, I never had time to grab it. And then one of the Straw Hats grabs the bag out of there and he's like, oh, so she grabbed it for me or something. And they realize that the old witch lady ended up packing it for him, which is another really wholesome moment as well. And that kind of makes Chopper realize that she was happy to see him go and kind of live his life and have adventure, things like that, which is really, really nice. And this is something that I finally get to say, and I'm so excited to finally be able to say it. Tony Chopper is finally a part of the Straw Hat crew. It's about time. It happens in volume 17, and Chopper's finally a part of the crew, so that's something I'm very much looking forward to when we get into Alabasta next time around for the next video. And then right at the end, we get a little bit of a tease to Mr. Zero, aka Crocodile. He is on his way to Alabasta. In fact, I think he's already in Alabasta when we see him. And this is when we kind of get a proper introduction, because we've already had introductions to him, but they were like very like vague. And this is like the first time we really get to see his kind of personality, I guess, and get to see, I guess, how mighty the dude is. And he's basically waiting in Alabasta for the Straw Hats to get there, though I'm not entirely sure if he knows that they're going to be there. He might be there for a different reason, I'm not entirely sure, but he's there. He's in Alabasta, so that's something that the Straw Hats will have to look forward to once they get there. But there is somebody that showed up to Drum Island before the Straw Hats even got there in the first place, and he's looking for Luffy, and he tells that to Dalton, and then Dalton was supposed to, like, I guess, refer a message to Luffy, and Luffy was already gone by that point, so he never got the chance to. So Luffy is not going to know what's coming when it comes to heading to Alabasta. And then there was also a character that was introduced, I think it was Mr. 1 or Mr. 2. I think it was Mr. 2. He's like this clown guy, weird looking, and he was over in Little Garden doing something. I can't exactly remember what it was that he was doing, and I just barely read it. So yeah, I'll have to watch some YouTube videos to kind of get it cleared up. But I was just really, really focused and excited about the fact that Chopper's finally a part of the crew. And we also, of course, in the last volume got his entire backstory, so I mean, that was also on my mind as well. So yeah. Anyway, guys, I think I'm going to call it there. I'm really looking forward to getting into Alabasta with you next time when we do another video on One Piece. I've been thoroughly enjoying this ride with you guys, and I'm glad that you guys are here along with me for it. I've been absolutely in love with One Piece. If you couldn't tell already, I've got Luffy hat, I've got all my One Piece up there, I've got the Going Merry, I've got a Gum Gum Fruit, which is also in the thumbnail, I've got all the other sets except for the Baratier. That's the only one I'm missing right now. So yeah, I'm just absolutely digging One Piece, and it's only getting better and better with every single arc, every single volume. And I hope you guys enjoyed my first time reading and my first time kind of reaction, my first time thoughts on One Piece Baroque Works. I absolutely loved going through it, and it's probably, in fact, I think it is my favorite arc so far. I really love East Blue. There's some iconic stuff in there, but with how crazy Baroque Works was, there was some insane stuff in these volumes that honestly kind of outshined East Blue in a lot of ways. So, and I've heard that it just gets even crazier from here. Like every arc just gets more and more insane. So I mean, I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to like the video if you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to comment down below any thoughts, any extra things that you guys may want to say, maybe some answers to some of the questions that I may have had throughout the video, maybe some more context to certain things, just whatever you guys want to leave down in the comments. I'm 100% going to read everything down there. So if you want to leave a comment, you'll know right here and right now that I will 100% read it. I read all of my comments. I don't leave a single one of them unread. And be sure to also subscribe, ding the notification bell for all the future uploads. I'm going to be going through the entirety of One Piece, the the whole entire manga, and there's also going to be other mangas that I'm going to be talking about as well and going through for the first time. Right there, I've got Vinland Saga and I've got Vagabond, so I'm going to be going through those at some point and talking about them. I'm probably going to do a bit of a different style of video for Vagabond and maybe Vinland Saga. I'm not entirely sure. The Vagabond one will be more like my first one that I did for One Piece for East Blue, where I had already read the entirety of East Blue, and I ended up doing the video afterwards, and I didn't have any of the moments where I was like throughout the video where I was actually doing the read through and stuff like that and having my fresh thoughts right after I read it. It was more of my thoughts a little bit after I have read it, and it wasn't super fresh on my mind like it is now. And I kind of skimmed through it and stuff like that to kind of refresh it as I was going, and that's kind of what I'm going to be doing with Vagabond at some point. Vinland Saga, I'm still on the first volume of that, and I haven't finished it yet. I'm probably about just a little over halfway through it, so I'm thinking I will probably end up doing a style of video like this one for Vinland Saga, but the first part of it, the first volume of it, will be like the first video for One Piece, since I've already read most of that. So yeah, so I'm gonna be doing that, and then I've also already read Uzumaki, so I'm probably gonna do a video on Uzumaki as well. It was a while ago since I've read it. I actually haven't read it in my physical edition that I have up there. I read it online when I did it, but at some point I want to read through it again on the physical edition just to kind of refresh my mind on it. And of course, reading the physical editions is always an improvement over just reading it over the internet. The artwork just tends to look better in general on the page. Yeah, you guys can also expect an Uzumaki video. And then there's a new manga / anime that I just got addicted to. Like, I'm a complete addict for it. It's probably unhealthy, called Dan to Dan, and I binged the entire manga and the 2 seasons of the show within like 3 days. So you guys will also be able to expect a video of me talking about that entire experience and what I thought of the show, what I thought of the manga. And the way I did that was, of course, I watched the show, so I basically just resumed with the manga where that left off. So I actually haven't read any of the manga that the show covered, but I want to do that at some point, probably before I record that video, just to know if there's any differences in the manga, which from what I know, there's not too many. Like, I'm pretty sure the show adapted the manga like pretty faithfully to the point like where there's really not many changes at all. But yeah, so Dan to Dan is another one that I'll be making a video on, and of course Berserk, I'm all caught up on that, and of course, like I just said, I'm all caught up on Dan to Dan now. So I'm waiting every single week for Dan to Dan. I can't wait for next week. And I actually just got caught up on Dan to Dan today. I'm sitting there biting my nails just waiting for more Dan to Dan, and I can't get more till next week because the most recent volume just came out today, which was volume 208. So not volume 208, chapter 208, and man, that story is so good. It's got me chomping at the bit. It's crazy. So that one I'm obsessed with, and I can't wait for more of that. Of course, I'm caught up on Berserk, so there probably won't be another chapter for probably another month or so. I think they said that there was going to be one in September, so probably this month, but I'm not entirely sure. There is some news from Koji Mori where he was saying that some upcoming stuff was going to be Eclipse level, so I don't know what he means by that, but that sounds crazy. So I'm really looking forward to that, especially considering Berserk's been a little slow lately, with Guts being just completely down on himself, and honestly not himself, to be honest, because he's just kind of been giving up, and it's kind of sad to watch. But I'm sure that that's Kentaro Miura's kind of faithful story that he was wanting to tell, and Koji Mori's doing his best. There's a lot of criticisms with what's going on lately, but I think it's just a slow build to something that's going to end up being crazy. And from what Koji Mori's saying, it's going to be probably Eclipse level, so that's going to be crazy. So there's going to be a lot of stuff to look forward to with Berserk as well. So yeah, there's a lot of manga stuff, a lot of anime stuff that's going to be coming onto this channel. So if you guys love manga and you guys love anime, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and ding that notification bell, because there's going to be lots and lots of that kind of content coming. And then of course I will be reacting to season 2 of One Piece on this channel right when it comes out, so you also have that to look forward to. And for those of you that are just barely getting on this channel, I have already done a reaction to season 1 of One Piece, and I have multiple videos of that on my YouTube channel already. I've got all the separate parts where you can watch it in separate pieces, and then I've also got a video where it binges all of the videos together, and you can basically just binge all of it, the whole season with me. So I'll put that on the end cards of this video when Palpatine shows up and tells you to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because you should. And yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about and everything I wanted to say for this video. I really thoroughly enjoyed making it, and I will see you guys in the next one for Alabasta. Deuces.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell.